So to I'm gonna get back on track talking about these gun laws. I get, like I said, I get since I guess there's not a lot of voices that are left of center, especially black voices on YouTube when it comes to guns. I get a lot of questions from a lot of white guys that I'm assuming are or consider themselves, far right or more right. And I don't know, they like to pick my brain on some stuff, and there's some people that are cool. There's other people that, it's like, they're just like, I don't know, like low key racist. Um, my litmus test is this. If I ask you why is Detroit the way that Detroit is, if your response doesn't start with the auto industry collapse, if your response starts with the blacks took over, like, I'm just, you're just a racist. Period. If you can't even do basic socioeconomic math, then there's no point in having an intelligent conversation with you. If you're doing, that sort of fucked up math, again, all the rules of the universe, only apply to white folks and they apply to black folks completely differently or not at all. And people try to make these, bigoted racist arguments, from that standpoint, right? Yes, we would like to see you maintain a community that mirrors and reflects ours without having the same resources. I'm like, yeah, okay. You keep telling yourself that. Um, but then I got some other people who, um, they just like to pick my brain about stuff and whatnot. And, a lot of times if I get similar or the same questions, I'll decide to make a video on it. But, like, see, as a black man, it's very difficult to talk about guns since it's so unpopular in the black community and there really is no gun culture. It's difficult to talk about why that is and talk about firearms and the way that I wish it was in the black community. I've already covered a lot of the reasons as to why things are the way that they are. Um, I don't know if I'm wasting my time sharing that with, white men. It's just like you talk about guns on YouTube, you're going to get a lot of white subscribers. Mainly, I like to talk to other black men because there is no conversation or discussion about guns other than the ones that we're having because we get around our family members, get around these single mothered households with no patriarchs, in the home and you can't have a conversation as a young black man in a matriarchal community about, firearms for, protection and self-defense and all other stuff. You know the reasons why. You see it on CNN and MSNBC every time you turn the television on, and it's nothing but a bunch of white women and black women who are out there and borderline questionably gay homosexual men who are out there talking about we need gun control, right? All the people talking about gun control are basically pacifist and people who only see themselves on the receiving end of a firearm as opposed to empowering themselves and being on the shooter end of the firearm. These are the people who swear up and down, oh, I couldn't kill anybody, yeah, until it's 3 o'clock in the morning and somebody's kicking in their front door and they wish they had a gun. They think that's so fanciful. Oh, that's so that's so out there. Like as though you're preparing or prepping for Armageddon, but yet these are the same people that take all their cues from, you know, the same media that shows the same, you know, criminal activity on, home invasions, carjackings, and all that stuff on the 6 o'clock news, right? So I'm like, it doesn't make any sense, right? Statistically speaking, mass shootings are infinitesimally small as it compares to not only all other shootings, but all other shootings being, that they involve handguns and not rifles, and then uh, statistically irrelevant as it pertains to all other forms of violence, right? You're more likely to get robbed at gunpoint than to die in a mass shooting. But yet these people are more focused on dying in a mass shooting than they are on the I don't know, you go to Wawa at 11 o'clock at night because you're hungry, you wake up out of your sleep, you want a $5 sub, so you go to the Wawa, or $5 hoagie, as they say in Jersey, right? So you go to the Wawa, and you pull out some money out the ATM, the PMC bank or whatever it is, and then you come out and somebody's got a gun in your face. That's more likely. Getting carjacked is more likely. They got a video clip on active self-protection. This guy was getting carjacked by like 4 or 5 people. He shoots three of them. Three of them. And the crazy thing is in New Jersey, they want to reduce the capacity down to 10 rounds. Like, it's like you better hope that you're like the most perfect shot in the world, right? This guy shot 3 people, probably shot them more than once, rapid fire, at close range, because these guys, I mean, they were right up on his door, and he starts shooting, and then they start running, and the adrenaline's pumping. So some of these guys, they don't even know that they're hit. Like, they're still functioning, because they don't even know that they're hit. But then after a couple of seconds, the pain sets in, or their muscles, or maybe the bullet hit bone, and now they have fractures, and they're literally trying to run away. I think one of them ended up dying. But they show this video of, these guys crawling across the street. And everybody, may say, and I got to agree with the people on the right about this, because, they'll say, oh, what about the criminal? And maybe he had a bad upbringing and all that stuff, right? And I'm saying, yeah, all that's true. But, I draw the line at, once you're out there and you got a gun in your hand and you trying to rob somebody and you're threatening somebody else with bodily harm, you know what I'm saying? Fuck your life. At that point, in that moment, the other person has every right in the world, to defend themselves. Now, if we want to have an intellectual how do we prevent this in the future, and why does this happen in the first place, and what's these kids' backgrounds, and what they were, how were they raised, and what they going through, and did they come from poverty, right? We all know the answer to that. White kids and black kids in the suburbs don't run around trying to carjack people. That's just the facts of reality. If you come from a family that has money and resources, the likelihood of you resorting to a life of crime is very low. But unfortunately, in America, we have this great wealth gap between whites and blacks. And, again, the racist whites want to act like, that's a non-factor and doesn't have anything to do with anything, right? But yet, if I want to see white crime, where do I go? Do I go to the wealthy white communities? No. I go to the poor, impoverished white communities, right? If I want to see, overwhelming preponderance of heroin addicts, I don't go to the wealthy white community. I go to the poor white community, even though we do see examples of it spilling into the wealthy white community. Even at, the high school that I went to, man, I mean, I run out of fingers going through the number of white people that I know, both in high school and after high school, who died of a heroin overdose. I mean, not too long ago, I shouldn't say I buried, a friend, but, a friend ended up dying, man, just because, he was on heroin. And I really felt some type of way about, his funeral and all that because, it's like here I am online talking about, black people and poverty and everything that black people are going through. And here you got a perfectly good white boy, you know, and, you know, ended up doing drugs. Just chose to, mess with drugs, right? Again, if he was black, white people would jump up and they would say, "Oh, he's lazy, and it's about personal choices and all this other shit," right? But since he's white, the narrative now suddenly switches, and all of a sudden it's, he has an addiction, it's a sickness, it's a disease, he needs therapy and all type of help and support systems and everything else because he's white. But I'm telling you, if he was black, it would have been, oh, personal responsibility, nigga. Like that's what the narrative would be. It's so irritating. It's so irritating. And it's like half the time I can't even take white people seriously when it comes to this stuff. Like the hypocrisy is profound, and you can't call them out on it. They'll sit up there and they'll deny and play dumb and all the other type of shit that they do. You know, but anyway, um, what was I saying? So yeah, like it's like statistically, you're more likely to get robbed, or carjacked or whatever, not die in a mass shooting. And yet these people will say that the people who are preparing for the more likely event of a home invasion or being carjacked or robbed or whatever at gunpoint are out of their minds. And then the people who want to, we need to ban, these, 0.001% of guns involved in gun crime to prevent, these mass shootings because of the carnage that takes place, right? So it's like you tell me who's crazier, right? But anyway, um, there was this article that I came across. First of all, there's another article that was written by this Joe guy. He wrote to the editor of I don't know, some New Jersey paper. I was just you know looking it up. Hold on a second. I swear the walls are too thin in this building. Like you can just hear everything. Um, but yeah, this other guy, he wrote this article, and the article was pretty damn good. I mean, it was awesome. Uh, the things that he pointed out about, these new laws that the Jersey's, going to put forth. And I may read that. I think I'm going to start doing, just for this channel specifically, I think I'm going to start doing, um, just reading some of these articles, that are coming out as it pertains to, the gun laws in New Jersey, in the back and forth, this sort of write the editor pieces that come out. Um, I think I'm gonna start just reading through the articles and dismantling them or co-signing the ones that I agree with because I mean it's like the logic is just crap. It's just total crap. Um, so where is this at? Opinion: Guns and New Jersey are not a match, and this is written by Frank Askin, right? And I'm gonna tell you what really pisses me off about this, but I'll get to that, as I'm reading it. He says as mass gun violence escalates across the country. Notice what he said. As mass gun violence escalates across the country, New Jersey has thus far remained immune. Just lucky, or is it that status at least a partial result of the state's rigid gun control laws? Checking the internet. There are at least 20 states which have suffered recent mass shootings, with California and Georgia leading the way. But of course, California has strict laws like New Jersey, and Georgia has very lax laws. So that comparison is of little value. New Jersey law is specifically tough in obtaining concealed carry permits. Such permits are limited to persons employed in security work and others who can establish an urgent necessity for self protection. The applicant must submit a detailed explanation to the police chief of the town where he resides at, excuse me, an out-of-stater has to apply to the superintendent of the state. The police chief then makes a recommendation to the Supreme Court judge, who is the only person who can issue such a permit, which is then valid for 2 years. Right? You hear how onerous of a task it is to try to get a permit in New Jersey, right? Continuing. But New Jersey's protection against concealed carry is now threatened by a bill pending in Congress known as the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act being pushed by the National Rifle Association. The bill would override state concealed carry laws and permit anyone with a valid permit from another state to carry their weapon in New Jersey. The bill has already passed the House and is pending in the Senate. An earlier version of the bill received 57 votes excuse me, 57 votes in 2013, including 7 votes from Democrats. But the bill needed 60 votes to overcome a filibuster. The good news is that New Jersey is that the bill will be unlikely to score even 7 Democratic votes this time around in the face of the national aversion to gun violence. If a bill should someday be enacted by both House and signed by a president, it would likely face strong constitutional challenges. Now, I'm not going to read the rest, but notice he ends off with, where does it say? Democratic votes this time around in the face of the national aversion to gun violence. But the piece that he wrote started off with him mentioning as mass gun violence escalates across the country. So now it's just, what do you say? Now it's just gun violence. And this is what really irritates me and pisses me off about this piece. What really irritates me and pisses me off about this piece is he's conflating two separate issues. He's conflating mass shootings, mass gun violence, with people wanting to be able to carry concealed for self-defense. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. Yeah, so, I mean, if that isn't infuriating, I don't know what is. You know, so now the goal to stop mass shootings that we've seen, Parkland and San Bernardino and all that other stuff, and the Pulse nightclub and all that, Vegas, right, has something to do with people wanting to carry concealed guns so that they can defend themselves against either said mass shooting or defend themselves against the more likely example of, you know, um, carjackings, armed robbery, home invasions, and things like that, right? Because what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of people who are robbed um, in home invasions are, robbed in transitional spaces, right? If somebody follows you home and you get out the car, and as you're getting out the car, or when you go into your garage, you see that a lot, especially if you've ever watched the South African home invasions, right? They follow you home and then they wait until you open the garage door, and then as you park your car in the garage door and it takes time for the garage door to come down, then that's when they bum rush the door. But well, anyway, I guess that's the end of the video because, like I said, the walls are thin, and so as you can hear, I got this noise behind me now from the other side of the wall. But yeah, like, yeah, I mean, just straight up conflating the issue. So law-abiding citizens wanting to carry concealed guns to defend themselves, which already takes place in, the vast majority of the United States. The vast majority of this country, with the exception of, Maryland, New York, um, I mean, surprisingly, even Massachusetts, you can carry a concealed gun, even though it's a, you know, ridiculous process. But places like California and New York and New Jersey, I mean, they just completely deny you the right. It may be on the books, but they just completely deny you right. And New Jersey is the worst offender. In New York, if you got enough money, you can get it. But in New Jersey, you either have to be, a security guard, you have to be, some sort of politician or judge or politically corrected, you know, in some way, you know. And it just boggles my mind at how some of these people write these type of articles and blatantly, grossly conflate two um, two things that have absolutely nothing to do with one another. So now people who can carry concealed guns, they're the cause of mass shootings. They're the cause of Parkland. The guy walking around with a 1911 on his hip, he's the reason why there's mass shooting. He's the reason why, you have homicides in Camden. He's the reason because he has a CCW permit or a CHL or whatever you want to call it. Really? Really? That's the argument that you're making? Really? I mean, see this. What this just comes down to is you have a hoplophobe, a person who's fearful of weapons and guns or whatever, who just doesn't want other people to have guns, doesn't want other people walking around with that sort of power. That's what they're really scared of. The mass shooting part really doesn't have much to do with it. They're not really worried about, being killed by a mass shooting. No, what they're more worried about, being more realistic about it, is the idea of people walking around with firearms. That's what they're more worried about, and they're using these mass shootings as a way to justify and conflate the issue and try to say that people walking around with CCWs and concealed carry permits will somehow contribute to mass shootings or gun violence. Like I said, he started off with mass shootings, and then he ended off with gun violence. And and the even dumber thing is, statistically speaking, concealed carry permit holders have less of a track record of violence than even police officers, because they're very much concerned about losing their right, in the event that they got into some sort of confrontation or conflict. When you have that firearm on your hip, you know that you have the end of time on your hip, just like a police officer does. And most people avoid situations because they know that they don't want to deal with the legality. They don't want to deal with, possibly losing their job, or spending any time in jail. So they just avoid. You're very cognizant of, the potential for, being, just financially obliterated. If you don't have freaking, concealed carry insurance, being obliterated in court, or some sort of civil suit, but that's much better. That's a much better option than ending up dead, like that video clip of those guys, carjacking the guy. That's much better to not be dead, than, what am I saying? Let me back up. It's much better to deal with that than to be dead, right? It's much better to deal with that than to end up like Carol Bound, unfortunately, what happened to her, right? Getting stabbed by her ex-boyfriend. She went to try to get the permit and couldn't get the permit. They didn't, because Jersey's just horrible. Oh yeah, just sit on it. We don't even have to let them know that we're sitting on it. Meanwhile, this person has this stalker, chasing them, And then what ended up happening, again, going back to the transitional space, she pulled up in her driveway, even though she got security cameras and everything else. Her psycho ex-boyfriend stabbed her to death in her driveway, and all of it was caught on her cameras. And then, what'll be said by the police of New Jersey? Oh, well, we don't have to, protect you, right? Because we're not your personal police, right? The Supreme Court has already, said that, right? There's no guarantee that the police have to show up or the police have to save you. You can't sue the police for not being there in your time of need, right? You're the only person that can defend yourself in your time of need, right? And I mean, it's just nuts. I mean, even in the black community where I got women running around screaming rape and pillage, screaming child molestation in the black community, and women are being violated all over the place. Well, guess what? In New Jersey, if you live in Patterson or Newark or Camden or any of these poor, impoverished neighborhoods and areas, you can't defend yourself. You are not able to defend yourself. You see? So, I mean, this is the problem, right? This is the problem. So it's just totally, it's disgusting the way that they put out these articles, that are just misinformation. But anyway, next time I make a video, I'm going to do the video covering the guy that actually, I mean, he wrote a kick-ass piece, especially when he brought up the point about these extra fees that New Jersey puts on your the Knicks check. New Jersey actually makes you pay for the Knicks check when the Knicks check is supposed to be free because it's already federally paid for. So what New Jersey does is basically punish gun owners for having firearms. But basically it's like this. It's like saying that the reason that violence exists is because of the Second Amendment. And so all you gun owners that are pro Second Amendment, that are keeping the Second Amendment alive, we're going to make you pay a fee for all of the gun violence, because if it wasn't for you guys protesting and keeping the Second Amendment alive, none of this violence would take place. So we're going to make you pay for it, even though none of you are the ones who are committing any of the crimes or doing any of this stuff. Simply because you fight for the right to possess a firearm to be able to defend yourself, it is your fault that there's violence in Camden. It's your fault that there's mass shootings. It's your fault, that there's domestic abusers or whatever. It's your fault. So you have to pay for that. So every time you buy a firearm, we're going to make you pay a transaction fee because you all embody, the evils of the world, because you take precautions to be able to defend yourself or your family or whatever. I'm like, see? And these people talk about how they're upholding the Constitution and upholding your rights, right? All these people who got bodyguards, all these people who have security, all these people who walk through metal detectors when they walk into a building, oh, thank you, Neville, right? Saying thank you to, some security guard. I just don't understand this, people who think, that, oh, just get rid of the guns. I'm like, why? So we can go back to the days of Braveheart and you can have 4 or 5 men on horseback showing up at your doorstep with swords? We'll make swords illegal, right? you know, 4 or 5 men with sticks is not a good thing to show up at your doorstep, period. You know? But you get these people who think that they can literally legislate violence away. It's just it's nuts. It's a joke. Oh man. Anyway, and that's my video. New Jersey gun laws out.